How are we doing? Okay. Perfect. Okay. All right. Okay, hey you guys. I am Cara Goodwin. Actually Cara Dixon, but Goodwin's my maiden name, so that's why I am on Facebook. I know Megan. She was my big sister on the dance team in college. So we've known each other for years and years and years and years. And actually we lost touch a while after college. And luckily, I saw her on Facebook as a fitness coach, and I was just so excited to jump in on her journey. I didn't really know what it was, but I was pumped for it. So that was about a year and maybe like 4 months ago. And I've just been working the business with her ever since, and it's just been an amazing process. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm so excited to be presenting tonight. I don't know if I'm supposed to be able to see, I know sometimes there's like, when I'm in the call, there's like messages that I can't see that. So I don't know if there's something I should do to be able to see that, or if that's just okay. But anyway, so I'm excited to present to you guys tonight. My goal is to talk to you about what fear can do for you. And hopefully this is a message that speaks to a lot of us that are here tonight. So we'll talk about fear a little bit. So the first thing I wanted to say is that I feel like with every story, there are two sides to it. And like there's two sides to every coin, that type of thing. So I feel like there's two sides to the fear coin. And that would be what fear can do to you, and then what fear can do for you. So fear is a very like all-encompassing thing. We all deal with it, but it's just a matter of looking at what it actually can do to you to like hold you back and paralyze you, or what it can do for you to push you forward and help you achieve the goals that you're hoping to work for, helping you to have the life that you're hoping to have. So that's what I'm gonna kind of talk to you guys about tonight. And I would love to say that I have like a checklist of things that can knock fear out and like you'll never have fear again, but that's really not what the call is. Hey, we're gonna have fear, and here's like a couple of things we can do. So I kind of wanted to start with my background story. I don't talk about my background a lot just because I get emotional, but I'm gonna try not to tonight. I'm gonna have a little sip of water. Okay, so I'm going to kind of touch on my 3 main moments of fear that I had throughout my life, and just kind of, I don't know, like touch on how I moved through them, I guess. Not how I like conquered fear or anything like that, just how I kind of moved past these major moments. So when I was younger, I would say like pretty soon after college, maybe a couple years after college, my mom had breast cancer and she passed away. And so you know, like with that process, you kind of see that the person's sick and it's very sad, but you kind of just, like when they pass away, you almost feel the relief in the fact that they're not suffering anymore, but it's just hard for you as the person that's still there. And then a couple years later, I would say like pretty back to back, the guy I was dating at the time, we had been together for 6 years, got killed in the war. So I'm not laughing, obviously, it's just more of a reflex because I don't like to get too emotional about it. I just want to present you guys the actual facts. But I feel like in that moment, it's not that I didn't think that God existed. I just didn't know that he like actually loved me. And I didn't know that I actually had a full purpose. And I didn't know that life was really worth it. I mean, it was just like, I put so much effort into my life and this is where I was at. So I just kind of wanted to give up and I kind of just wanted to do nothing. And so I lived kind of in that misery for a little bit. Like I let myself just throw a pity party. I let myself not try that hard. I let myself just have a rough time, really. And then one day I was like, I literally can't live like this anymore. And my best friend in the whole world, Nicole, you guys know her. She's on Team Phoenix and she is amazing. She lived in New York City and that's a place where there's a lot of opportunity. I was in the dance field. And I just got in touch with her about her roommate moving out for the summer, which was happening, and telling her that I wanted to sublease her place for a month. Now, granted, at the time I had been living pretty miserably for like, I would say a good 9 months. So I had tons of debt. I maybe had enough money to pay for the sublease for the month and maybe eat. But like other than that, my credit cards were maxed out and I really most people probably wouldn't have done that. So I did, and within 2 weeks of living in New York, I just had a weight that was off of me that I had had when I was trying to survive earlier, and it was just a different feeling for me. So I decided that I was going to sign a lease to live in New York City, and I didn't have a job. I, at the time, had maxed out all my credit cards. I literally had absolutely no money left. And so people at the time asked me, how are you going to survive up here? And I was like, I don't know. But you know what? The fact of the matter is that the idea of going home to the place where I had all the pain was scarier to me than struggling and maybe not knowing what I was going to do in New York City. So like in that moment, I had tons of fear, but I was more scared of not moving or not moving forward than I was of doing it and risking a lot. So that was one circumstance where I just wanted to touch on because I think it'll like come full circle a little bit later. Another moment of like fear when I was in New York is I just felt really called to create a show. Like around my boyfriend passing away, I like had never really said anything. I never really spoke my piece. So even though I was healing, I never really had that closure of saying what I felt or like what I needed or like what the loss meant to me. And so I decided I was going to create a show in New York. And I auditioned dancers and I got a theater and I like hired a lighting designer and I pulled people in from out of town to work for the show. And I got to like about 2 months before the show. Now, granted, the show probably cost like $15,000. And I would say we probably had like $5,000 worth of fundraising. And I promised people I was going to put all the ticket sales to a charity, the Wounded Warrior Project. So I am taking on about $10,000 worth of this show myself. And I remember sitting on the train and being like maybe 2 months out from the show and writing down all the expenses I still had left to pay. And it was over $6,000. And I was literally like, I don't think I'm going to have that kind of money. And I remember my face just feeling really hot because I was like, am I in too deep? And I thought about that for a second. And then I thought to myself, you know what? I'm already committed to this and I'm going to push through and it's going to happen. And I'm not going to think about where the money is going to come. I'm going to do everything in my power to create money. Like I'll work harder, I'll do more, but I just have to trust that if I do my absolute best, that it will be here. And when the show came on, I remember donating all the money because I had paid for the rest myself. To this day, I still have no idea how that happened. And it was probably the craziest thing ever, but it happened. And that's the thing. I just kept putting one foot in front of the other. And then my third moment of major fear was to quit my full-time job and to start coaching full-time, which I think that's a fear for all of us. Like we can see the possibility of how awesome coaching is, but we can see the comfort of like our full-time job, or the comfort of having a salary, or the comfort of having benefits. And it's hard to step outside on that ledge and be like, there's no guarantee with coaching. There's absolutely no guarantee. Besides, your hard work will pay off if you are consistently working hard. And so that was my third moment of fear, where I was just like, I am so unhappy at my job that I have to move forward. That's my only option. And I remember writing in my resignation letter that I would rather be poor than to be unhappy. And in that moment, I knew, like, I just can't stay in this place where I'm at. Like, I have to do something to move forward. It's the only option. And so that was kind of my third moment, where I was just like, you know what? I don't have all the facts and I don't have all the numbers lining up, but I'm going to jump and just assume that that is the best thing for me. And not sit there and be logical, and not sit there. And I know a lot of us are very factual. I'm more like feeling based. Like, if it feels good, I'll go in that direction. So a lot of you are probably like, that sounds crazy. And maybe it does, but for me, it just works to create my life around a feeling instead of around like facts. So even the feelings are not facts. So the common thread I noticed with the list of the 3 things were this. 1, you have to have no matter what goals. You have to be like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm going to accomplish this. And the no matter what goals have to be no matter what. They can't just be like, this is my no matter what goal, but I didn't do it. They have to be like literally no matter what and mean it. Because it's easy to be like, I'm gonna do this, and you don't do it, and then you're just like, oh, okay, well, I'll do it later. But like, to say you're gonna do it and to not have the option to back down, which is the times when I noticed that I had tons of fear and like pushed through anyway, were the moments when I literally had no option but to make it happen. So I feel like if we did that with our business, even though we're not like in this dire place, but if we did that with our business, where no matter what goals, we're literally, no matter what, these are our goals, like, we would do more. We would be better, you know? Another common thread I noticed was just putting one foot in front of the other, to, you know, have small goals and still have the big picture. So sometimes we look at the big picture and we're like, oh, that seems unreasonable. But if we have those small goals and we continuously put one foot in front of the other, we have that consistency. That's another thing I noticed in the, you know, transition between these major moments of fear, is that no matter what, I kept putting those feet in front of the other. Even if I didn't know that I would succeed, or I didn't know where the next foot would actually land, I kept moving, and that helped me a lot. And then the third thing is don't compare yourself to others. You know, like, compare instead what could be if you did it versus what would be if you didn't. So I feel like sometimes our future is not guaranteed in coaching. There's no guarantee we're going to hit Success Club, or there's no guarantee we're going to be like a 5-star coach or whatever. But what if you could? Like, what would that be like? Like, what if you could do that stuff? Versus what would happen? We already know what would happen if we didn't do it. Like, we're all coaches for a reason. Like, we all have a bigger dream. We all jumped into this because we have something bigger in our hearts that we want to do. And so sometimes we like are like, oh, well, you know, it's hard. But you know what? We already know what the opposite feels like, and we're already trying to change that. So let's just look ahead at like the amazing things that could be and will be if we keep moving forward. So, oof, there's some things off the desk. Okay, so I kind of wanted to touch on fear a little bit more, and saying that I believe, I'm not a doctor of fear, but I believe there are 2 types of fear. One, I think, is emotional-based fear, and it's imagination-based. So the fear of failure, the fear of not meeting expectations, the fear of being let down, the fear of how others might perceive us. Like, there's so many fears that are like based on our feelings, and like, oh, I'm scared of that, but like, they're not actually going to hurt us. Like, so what? So maybe someone hated our post. Like, we're not actually in danger of that. You know what I mean? It's just a fear based on our feelings. Like, oh, we preferred if everybody loved our post. Well, we won't, you know, like even if we weren't coaches, not everyone's going to love our posts, you know? And so we build this big fear based on our feelings and like, what if that, but it's not, feelings are not facts. And I know I base a lot of things on feelings, but when it comes to fear, we do have to remember that feelings are absolutely not facts. And so when we fear something, most of the time it doesn't even exist. And so we've created this fear inside of us that almost paralyzes us. And it's not real. It doesn't really exist. So there's that. And then I think the other type of fear is a physical-based and a reality-based fear. So like fear of danger. So like if your kid runs out in front of a car, you know that something bad could happen to your child. So there's a legitimate fear there. And so that fear, I think, is something that you can definitely acknowledge and take hold of, but that's not the fear that we're facing in our business. You know, like we're not facing the fear that someone's gonna like pull a gun out and shoot us because we asked them to buy a challenge pack. We're just afraid that our feelings are gonna be hurt because they said no. And so it's like, okay, you know what? They said no. You can only be scared of that until you do it. So like we're scared to ask somebody to join our group. We're scared to ask somebody to buy a challenge pack, but you're only scared of it until you do it. And then you're like, oh, okay, well, they said yes or they said no. And like nothing changed in our life, you know, like nothing major changed in our life, no matter what their answer is. And to be honest with you, all coaches hear the same answers. I mean, we hear yes or we hear no. And typically if you're a coach long enough, the no's come from a few of the same spots. Like you'll hear the same reasons for no's over and over again. There's not like, no, because I hate you. They're like, no, because it's not a good time for me. No, because I like don't have the money. No, because I can't commit to that. You know, they're not saying no to you. And so part of that is just us putting our personal spin on how people feel about us when really they're not saying no, like, I wish you would never contact me. They're saying, no, it's for me, it's not a good time. And like, but we put meaning into that. We are like, we're creatures of meaning. We like want to make meaning out of everything. So we're like, oh, they said no because like my last post offended them. Like that's not true, you know? And if we want to make meaning out of something, we should make a cool meaning. Like, oh, they said no because it's not their time. You know, I bet that's an awesome prospect for next month. Good for me. Next month I'm going to be ahead on Success Club. But instead we're like, oh, they said no, like, you know, I mean, and if we have the option to make a meaning out of it, we should create like a pretty cool meaning. Like, oh, like they really want to work with me, but for them it's not right. You know what I mean? So that's that. And I think that kind of touches, that kind of leads into the idea of finding your why. So we talk about this all the time, so I won't like dig deep into it. But I think if you know your why for, not specifically why you coach other people, but for yourself personally, like, why is this an awesome thing for your life? Like, what is this going to change for you? Then it's hard for you to go back to the way you thought about things before, because you're more comfortable moving forward. And like fear now is more like a fear of staying where you were. It's like more of a fear of not developing as a person, or not developing as a business owner, or living in the same miserable job for a really long time, or not being able to spend time with your kids. Like I would have more fear around that than around what it takes to succeed in the business. So at that point, the fear of staying still is so much scarier. So then that alone motivates us and pushes us forward. So we can use that fear in order to push us. That fear can be like, I cannot go back to this point. I have to move forward. And so that can propel us in our actions. To conquer fear, you have to be more scared to stay where you are or where you were than to move forward. So if you're comfortable where you are, which honestly, if you jumped into coaching, you probably want more. I mean, you probably jumped into it because you want more for yourself. But say you're comfortable where you are, then fear's not going to help you because you're just happy there. But if you're in a place where you're just like, I want more. I want to spend more time with my husband. I want to spend more time traveling. I want to spend less time at a job I hate. Then that fear of staying there will propel you to do things that perhaps you wouldn't have felt comfortable doing before. When when that transformation occurs, fear will not be paralyzing and it won't be a crutch. So when you finally choose in your mind to let fear push you forward, you're so scared to stay where you are, then fear is going to be your main motivator. It won't be your crutch. It'll push you. It'll push you forward. And then you'll almost be afraid not to. Like, you'll almost be afraid not to do the steps you're supposed to do, because this is what you're going to get if you don't do it, you know? So you're like, you can look at that and be like, oh, I basically have to do the steps that we learn in our trainings. I have to, you know, follow coaches that seem like they're ahead of me because they know what they're doing a little bit more. Like, what is she doing? Oh, that's uncomfortable, but that's worse. So I have to do those things. And you're gonna fear standing still. Like, fear, you'll be so scared to stand still that that'll make you do your power hour. That'll make you reach out to that person that you thought was a 10, like, because you're scared not to. You know what I mean? Yeah. So moving into like kind of my last little things. Part of being a coach is watching coaches around you and coaches that you feel like are a little bit in front of you and learning from them. And that alone can be intimidating. And I think that sometimes we look at coaches that are above us, you know what I mean? Like, ones that are farther along or ones that are hitting goals that we can't imagine yet hitting. And we're like, oof, that's really scary. Like, it's easy for her. Like, that is easy for her, but it's not easy for me. And we think that people have it differently than we do. But don't assume that a coach is not scared just because they're successful. Okay? Don't assume that just because a coach is like a 15-star diamond coach, that they don't still get nervous to reach out to their number 10. They're like 10, you know? Like, don't assume that they're not nervous to approach people or to hit Success Club. Like, oh, they hit Success Club 87 every month. Well, you know what? It's still hard for them, and they still have big goals. And we assume that they're not scared just because they're doing it. But don't assume they don't have fear because they're successful. We all have fear. Everybody has fear. Like, we all have fear. And so no matter how successful a coach is, they're scared too to like not hit a lead, or, you know, they have goals and they're scared not to hit them. But that still motivates them, and they're going to do it no matter what. And that's the part that we see when we're watching, like, that they're doing it no matter what. That doesn't mean they're not scared. We just have to know that we will feel fear, and we have to do it anyway. So I think sometimes when we feel afraid of something, we're surprised. But just know when you feel the fear, you're supposed to. You're supposed to feel afraid, and then you need to absorb that and be like, oh, I'm supposed to feel this, but I have to do this anyway. Our biggest complication, I think, is trying to analyze why we have fear in the first place. Like, we're like, I'm scared. Why am I scared? Like, and we spend so much time worried about why we're scared that we don't do the action steps to get past the fear. Like, we're just like, we almost stay in it. So the biggest complication is analyzing why we're there in the first place. Well, guess what? We're all there. And the people that don't analyze it so much, but just keep putting one foot in front of the others, they're the ones that are moving forward. So don't stop in your fear and think about it. Just know that it's supposed to be there. It's totally normal. And then push forward. And then don't waste your time. Don't waste your time giving fear too much thought. Just know it's supposed to be there. And just know also that it's not you. It's part of the process. Like, you're scared. I'm scared. I'm sure Megan's scared. Like, we're all scared. It's all part of the process. It's not you. So sometimes we take it personally when we feel scared of doing something, like, well, that person has it easy. It's not you. Trust me. And so my kind of encouragement to you is to see fear as a positive. If you fear something, think to yourself, this means something to me, and it's probably worth doing. So what's that quote? I was trying to remember the quote earlier, and I think I wrote it down. Hold on, let me see. Ah. If you're, yeah, everyone knows this quote, but if your dreams don't scare you, they aren't big enough. A smart person. Because if you're doing stuff that's just comfortable to you, you're not dreaming big. Like, you're not pushing your life into the direction where great things are going to happen. Your dreams are supposed to scare you. You're supposed to be nervous. You're supposed to like wonder. You're supposed to really want it. And when you really want something, you're scared to fall short of it. So like, if you have that fear, you're on the right path. And you know that whatever you're working for is totally worth it to you. I'm going to just do 2 closing points. One is, it's not simple, but it's easy. That's not true. That's not a true statement. It's simple, but it's not easy. Okay. It's very simple, but it's not easy. Just know that the idea of getting past fear is an easy idea, but as you're working through it, it's very, 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 very hard. And it's not something that's just going to happen overnight. It's something that's going to happen with tons of practice. And the other thing is, never look back, because the past will never be as appealing as the future possibilities, but a lot of times it's more comfortable to look back, and it welcomes you to slide back into the places that you used to be. So don't look back. Don't look back on the past. Try to always look forward. No matter what happens, no matter how bad the past was, it's always going to look comfortable. And that's easy to fall back into. So hold on 1 second. Megan left me a little voice memo. Okay, nope, I'm going to ignore it. Yeah, so that's basically what I wanted to share with you today. I know I don't have tips for like, oh, 1, 2, 3 to get past fear, but just the acknowledgement that scary things are a lot of times good things. And sometimes we stop and we overanalyze, and it's tough. And if we can just keep our vision in mind, keep your big vision in mind, and then take those small steps, and just know that it's not simple, that it is the concept is simple, but it's not easy to do. Not everyone can do it because it's not easy. Ooh, okay, let me see. Chat, okay. I'm gonna try to open up the chat as I'm closing this. Okay. Be patient with me. Oh, there it is. Yes. Okay, so I have opened up my chat. I can now read it. I do see it. I don't see anything written in it, so I guess that's okay, right? Was there anything written in it? Okay. Okay, perfect, you guys. So that's what I wanted to share with you tonight. I hope that was helpful in some way. And if you have any questions, or you want to just chat a little bit about that concept, I would love to. I can stand for a little bit, and yeah, I don't try to read Megan's words. Yeah. So if anybody has anything they want to say or ask, or a lot of times, I had a friend once tell me that well, she approached me one time and she told me that I was the bravest person she knew, and I couldn't accept that compliment because I didn't understand it. I feel like if you leave a hairstylist and your hair looks really awesome, and somebody was like, your hair looks amazing, you understand that, and you're like, oh yeah, I actually feel like my hair looks pretty awesome today because someone did it for me. I feel like to think of yourself as brave, it's like, it's very subjective, and I can't look back on my process and think that I was ever brave. I mean, I just can't see myself as being that way. So that's why I have a hard time giving tips on like actually not having fear, like actually being brave. However, I just think that sometimes life is hard and you just have to do it, or you have to make big steps in the right direction and see a big picture for yourself in your life and have like a positive outlook no matter what, even if you're really, really, really struggling, because that's what might not make you brave, but it might make you push to do things that you might not think that you're able to do. So yeah, that's basically all I have for you guys tonight. And Megan, should I do anything or? See what's happening over here. All right, so I'm going to close out the Team Phoenix team call. You guys, thanks for having me. I hope that you had a great night, and I look forward to seeing you around the group. And I enjoyed chatting with you guys. Love you all.